Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to talk a little bit about something called missing maps and the millions of people that are affected by this challenge. My name's Tyler Radford. I work with an NGO called Humanitarian OpenStreetMap Team. During this conference, how many of you have heard the term inclusive DRR in any of the sessions? Only one person. Okay, two, three. We also hear the term leave no one behind, which is really a core tenet of the SDGs. When we think about, we want to not only sort of increase the living standards of the most well-off, but include everyone in the SDG process. How can we do that, however, if many millions of people around the world simply don't appear on any map? Essentially being invisible to the decision makers who are implementing programs around disaster risk reduction. I'll show you one example. This is a photo from a few weeks ago in Liberia, where we were working in a city of about 25,000 people, and this is the best available data source around mapping in that city. And so this is fantastic. It's great because we do have some data available. However, there's one challenge. You actually need to be standing in the room in order to use it. So this data is not available online or in any sort of digital format. I'll show you another example. It's a problem that many people don't realize, but many places around the world simply don't appear on any map. So take a look at this map, for example. What you're seeing here are two villages in quite remote rural regions of Nepal that were affected by the earthquake in 2015. This is the same location, but on a different map source. This is something called OpenStreetMap. And you can see the incredible complexity here. This is a place where hundreds or even thousands of people live. And each of those gray squares is actually a home or a building in that community. So same location, different data source. So for those of you who are from Tanzania or might have worked in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam is the fastest growing city in Africa, expected to exceed 10 million people in the coming years as one of Africa's megacities. This is one of the neighborhoods in Dar es Salaam, Hana Nasif, and this is an area home to over 30,000 people. You can see, taking a look at the map here, you see some roads, some very basics around the area, but not much detail. This area is heavily affected by flooding each year during the rainy season. So this is a really typical view of what you might see where many homes are actually built in the floodplain and experience flooding during the rains. And on the right side there, you'll see some of the sort of blocked drainage infrastructure that contributes to the flooding. So what we've been working to do here, you're going to see this slide from left to right and right to left. The gray is kind of the before, and the orange that you just saw is the after. So this is really what we talk about when I'm talking about missing maps. This is an area that's just simply no good data is available prior to working in the community. And you can see we went from 0 buildings mapped to over 6,000 buildings mapped. So this is an area that's incredibly complex. It's incredibly rich in terms of the infrastructure, the schools, the health facilities, and other features of the community, but it simply doesn't appear on any public data source. So we started asking ourselves in 2015, how can we address this problem but do it on a big global scale, not just a pilot program, not just in one country, but work globally on the problem of missing data. And so we formed a collaborative project called Missing Maps alongside the American Red Cross, British Red Cross, and Doctors Without Borders. And since then, a number of other NGOs have joined the initiative and are working to contribute data, contribute to OpenStreetMap in the countries where they're working. So this is what Missing Maps looks like. And the reason I'm telling you about this today is because all of you sitting here and standing here have the power to contribute to the project, whether as individual volunteers or through your organizations. This is something we call a mapathon, where we get multiple people together, sitting in a room, and have them focus on mapping an area of the world where there are data gaps. So this is what a typical volunteer would see. We provide them with satellite imagery. They work to trace what they see, so tracing the buildings and the roads, creating squares or lines. And then that data becomes what we call vector data. Once you have this type of data, you can then use it for analysis in GIS software, and I'll show you a few examples of how that looks. We're not only working remotely through volunteers, we're also working on the ground. So many of our partner NGOs and individual volunteers are working to put the places they live on the map for the first time. And they're doing this by walking street by street, building by building, using a number of technologies, both on paper and mobile devices, to actually collect data, and it all contributes back to OpenStreetMap. This is a photo of two 8-year-old girls contributing to the Missing Maps project. This is a mapathon that one of our partners arranged in Italy. So it just really shows that it's simple enough that anyone can contribute to improving data in disaster-prone areas. So some of those photos I showed you of Dar es Salaam, Tanzania a little earlier, sort of as you see the white areas get filled in, this is individual map edits, individual buildings and individual road segments being put onto the map for the first time by 250 university students in Dar es Salaam. Many of them who are living and working and studying in areas that are most affected by flooding. And so they've worked to map almost the entire flood-prone region of their city, covering an area home to more than 3 million people in just over a year's time. So all this data that they're creating is then available to the government, it's available to community organizations, and most importantly, it's available to the students themselves to help to plan disaster risk reduction activities in their community. And I'll show you a few examples of those. So this is just one neighborhood looked like before they started working on the left side. So you see, looks like there's a road there, and maybe a river. That's about all you can see. On the right side, this is the same location after the students mapped it. And you can see the incredible complexity in this community. This is a place where tens of thousands of people live. And it's an area that's, when we better understand some of the vulnerabilities and challenges, like blocked drains, for example, that contribute to flooding, we can then work together to address those challenges. Once we have the data, it could also be used by disaster managers to do contingency planning. So this is a free software which we often use called Inasafe. And using Inasafe, you can then take that data around buildings and run scenarios. For example, what happens if 6 inches of rain fall in this area? Or what happens if an earthquake of magnitude 7.2 affects the surrounding area? What you're seeing here is then it'll actually produce outputs in the form of reports and maps, which help disaster managers to better understand who might be affected if a disaster occurred in that area. So the process of creating maps, it's not only important for the data, but also for sort of the learning that takes place with young people. So most of the work we do involves young people getting involved in the mapping process in the places they live. And through that process, they're actually becoming more aware of disaster or natural hazards in their communities and helping to actually address some of those things. So one example is the blocked drainage that you saw before. Through the process of mapping and young people becoming more aware, there were then activities organized around actually cleaning those drains and contributing to improved drainage in the areas that have been affected by flooding. So I'll wrap up with just a couple thoughts. Over the years, our organization got our start after the earthquake in Haiti in 2010. Since that time, we've had more than 32,000 volunteers contribute with us, and every one of you sitting here today has the power to contribute to filling data gaps. So I challenge you to think about what type of programs you're working on in your countries, in your communities, and how you, as you collect data, or if you're experiencing data gaps, how you might want to contribute to mapping in OpenStreetMap. All of the data that I've showed is also available to you publicly and can be exported for you to help plan programming in the places you're working. So I'm happy to talk to you more about that. And if you're interested, please join us this September in Ottawa, Canada. We're holding a global summit which invites anyone interested in open data and open mapping to join us to talk about what they're doing in their countries and to share experiences that are happening around the world. So thanks very much, and look forward to talking to you after this.